Well, welcome everyone to Bowling with the Fef, a platform for you to share your unique bowling story, and it's all live on our YouTube channel on an exciting Tuesday night with women's bowling going on right now, the PWBA US Open. As I'm speaking, assuming that my streaming is in time right now, it looks like Josie Barnes is up in the 10th frame of the title match against Sherry Tan. With an 8-pin lead, spare up, and she's about to throw a shot here. And let's see how she does. I'm not great with the play-by-play. I'm hoping to get better. And she ends up with 6. So lost a little count there. And she is going to finish at 198 with Tan up and a chance to double to win. Exciting stuff for a $100,000 first place prize. Again, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to throw them in our chat window. It is live right now, and I'll get to those at the end of the show. But for right now, I want to bring on our guest, and I'm really excited to bring this gentleman on. He's been watching too. He is Rob Piroshad of Scottsdale, Arizona, of course, originally from Brooklyn, collegiate star at Saginaw Valley State University, Jets, Mets, and Nets, if I'm correct.
Anything ends with a Nets.
So, yeah, welcome to...
hasn't won.
Right. Thanks in part due to my Milwaukee Bucks, right? But, yeah, welcome to the show. Really glad to have you on. And like I said, you're watching along with us. It looks like Tan has the first strike in the 10th. So it really comes down to this for $100K.
I mean, first off, it's great to see the women bowling live on television for $100 grand. They deserve it. They're definitely, just amazing to see women bowling for this much money. So I'm rooting for Josie Barnes personally. So I hope Cherry doesn't strike, but
okay.
What are you gonna do?
You want me to tell you what's happening as it happens? Because it looks like I'm a little ahead of you.
Go for it. I'm fine.
All right. So Tan is up right now. She's down 4. She's got the first strike in the 10th. Obviously needs one more strike to seal it up. If she doesn't, Barnes is going to win it. Here's the shot. And no, she got 8. Went light. A 3-6. And Josie Barnes, just like you spelled it out, $100,000 richer.
So great. It's so great to see the women in the USBC putting up that money and actually having a prize fund worth a major.
Yeah, absolutely. They told a really she told a heartwarming story about, having lost her mother and kind of seeing and feeling her all around as she's going through this process of all these games and trying to win a major. I mean, she's got to have a lot of support after that, don't you think?
Yeah, and I can't imagine, fortunately for me, my mom and my dad are still alive, and it's got to be so hard to just know that they're watching you, but so supportive and feeling so great to do that, and especially $100 grand and U.S. Open, a major. She's got to be on cloud 9 right now, and the emotions have got to be unbelievable. She probably can't even talk, let alone I'm looking at her right now, and she's crying, and good for her. I'm so happy for her.
Yeah, good for her, and really good for all of us to be able to see a great title match like that on cable television. It's been a long time coming. Unfortunately, your co-host on Sweep the Rack could not see this live. He tweeted earlier. He said that it's disappointing, but he's got to show up to this league meeting and make sure things are moving forward and that the haters can't win. Is he that guy in the league meeting? Because I feel like early on in my career, I was never that guy. I just wanted to, get it over with and let's bowl. But now I feel like, maybe I got to kind of poke the bear a little bit during these league meetings to make sure, things are on the level.
If things aren't fair, he's definitely that guy. Big Mike is definitely a man of the people, and he's a competitive bowler. And I feel like he is there to put the people that don't really understand bowling in the check. So I would love the bowl league with Big Mike. It would be probably the funnest yet. We would probably get in the most trouble for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back to this PWBA thing, of course. Do you have any thoughts on who the favorites might be in the Player of the Year race? They talked about the multiple-time titleists like Brianna Cote, Stephanie Zavala, Dasha Kovalova has a couple titles. It's a pretty tight race for that, wouldn't you think?
It is. I'm gonna go ahead and I like Stephanie Zavala because one, she's a SoCal girl, and I lived there for about 8 to 10 years. But look, like she's having an amazing year, and she just made the show here at the U.S. Open, and I feel like I kind of would like her for Bowl of the Year.
Yeah. All right. We'll see what happens. It's definitely been an exciting season on the women's side so far. Now, we're here to tell stories, and I can only get so far in the PWBA thing as recent as that's been. But let's get into your bowling story. Of course, we got to start out with how you got your start, how, when, and where. What you remember about first getting involved in the sport of bowling.
I remember I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, at a bowling center called Gil Hodges Lanes. That was just real close to my house, probably about a 5-minute drive, about a 20-minute walk. And both my older brothers bowled. Dave was 3 years older than me. Jeff was 6 years older than me. And I started literally and you're gonna laugh here, I started as a two-handed bowler. I was about 3 to 4 years old. And the manager at the bowling center actually didn't allow me to bowl two-handed.
Oh.
Yeah, so I literally had to change from and I was winning, like I was bowling very well as a junior as a two-handed. I was literally throwing it like Peggy Bundy. I was just doing that. But I would actually throw it and I would run and then toss it, and they didn't like that. So they actually told me I couldn't do it, and I had to switch to a one-handed bowler. But since 3 to 4 years old, I was hooked, and I just literally grew up in the bowling center.
Did you ever wonder what could have been if you stuck with that two-handed style, if the manager wasn't on your case and you ended up growing in the sport that way?
I have a lot of what ifs when it comes to my bowling career. I definitely laugh because I do get people think I look like Jason Belmonte. So I actually have had that happen to me before when I've been bowling a PBA tournament and people have came over and asked me for my autograph. And then when I'm less like, you really don't want my autograph, they would literally think I was him. And I've had that multiple times. So I always wondered, I'm older than Belmo, probably about 3 to 4 years, I think. So I'd always imagine maybe I would have been the first, I would have been Belmo and he would have, been doing the podcast
with Big Mike.
Right, with Big Mike.
No, that's awesome. Tell me, you talked about how it hooked you. Do you remember, back then what it was about the sport? Was it hanging with your friends? Was it, just that you felt you could get good at it? Was there something else that really kind of got you?
I was really good at it when I was a kid. I mean, I have Triple Crown Pee-wee trophies, meaning high average, high game, and high series, literally bowling as like a 4 to 5-year-old. I was always very good at it. And when you're good at something as a kid, you want to keep doing it. And obviously you want to be with your brothers and you want to be hanging out with the older kids and the older crew. So that's how I started bowling. I was just loved being around it. And my mom bowled, my dad bowled. We used to go family bowling Saturday nights at Gil Hodges from 5 to 7 p.m. And it was a family event. My mom bowled 2 leagues a week. I bowled leagues. Everybody bowled leagues. I can't imagine the money my dad spent a month just on bowling leagues and bowling tournaments.
Yeah. You mentioned already a couple times Gil Hodges Lanes where you got your start. You mentioned it on your show as well a couple times, at least. It must be really special to you. I mean, and of course, the place where you got your start has got to be. I mean, it is for me. It is for a lot of bowlers. But you must hold that place pretty dear.
That place was my Cheers. And, the show Cheers with Norm, that was my Cheers. Everybody knew your name. You walked in, everybody knew who I was as a kid, grew up bowling. You knew everybody in that bowling center, leagues, all of it. It does that area itself. I mean, the park was across the street. We used to play handball, basketball, then go bowl. Then we used to walk to the place called the Milk Barn, and they had these like slushies and ice cream, and then there was action video. We used to go to the video store. I mean, we literally, it was our hangout. We bowled, and we always were in that bowling center. So it was so much fun, and there's so many great stories to come out of that place. We'd have to be on the show literally like 3 hours.
Tell me about the junior program there. What was it like, and I guess how did it help you grow as a bowler?
The junior program was actually really great. We bowled Friday night team doubles, Saturday morning it was a 4-person league, and then Sunday morning adult child. So I mean, literally 3 leagues, and the place was impossible. They were really tough. It was beat up wood lanes. They would oil once a week. They wouldn't strip. So, you're using whatever it is as a kid, urethane and plastic, and you were grabbing on the ball. You were trying to get the ball to hook. So till like today as a 40-year-old, that place still has a big effect on how I throw the ball.
Yeah. You grow in the game, you start in juniors and junior tournaments. Did you bowl for a high school, or was it all kind of individual for you?
Oh, do you want to talk about my high school? I was a very, very prominent high school bowler, Midwood High School in Brooklyn, New York. We had a very, very big high school bowling program. The PSAL was, a very competitive high school competition, really. We bowled against, all the high schools in the area between Brooklyn first, and then if you made the city championships, you bowl against Staten Island and Queens, and I mean, it was real prominent. I had a very actually successful high school career. Anybody knows me, I'm like Al Bundy. I love to talk about my high school bowling days. I won a city individual championship as a sophomore. Never got a chance to win a city title as a team. That always haunted me till this day. We had 2 top 4 finishes, but we never got to win as a team. And I always, that always haunted me till this day. So.
Did you bowl individual games? Because when, I was in high school in Minnesota, and our high school league was all Baker, like start to finish.
No, it was like bowling league. It was a 4-man team, or was it a 5-man? I believe it was a 5. It could have been a 5-man. I actually don't remember, but it was all team. There wasn't really any individual until you got to the individual championships. You had to go through Brooklyn individuals, and it was only 3 games. They took a top small percentage, and then you go to a city where you bowled against all 5 boroughs in one tournament.
Ah, I see. Okay. So while you're learning, growing in the game, are there any coaches that, really kind of helped you along your way, or are you kind of a self-taught, bowler?
I mean, you had your locals who would always tell you some tips, and they'd always come over to you. But I grew up in the Dick Ricker bowling camp program. I bowled. My parents would take me up to Ithaca, New York, every year for probably about 4 years. As I'd say, maybe I started at 12 to probably when I was 15 or 16. We used to spend the week in the Cornell campus in the dorms. And my brother Jeff became a coach there, and Kelly Kulik was a prominent coach at Dick Ricker. We became really good friends with Kelly Kulik, who was commentating on the U.S. Open. So, till this day, we're, good friends. And when I see her, it's always nice to see Kelly. But yeah, so Dick Ricker was teaching you the drills. And I'm not sure if you know that, but it was just drills for literally 5 days. And then they would put all your drills together, and they'd literally recreate your 5-step approach.
Wow. Yeah, I had a lot of friends who went through, the Ricker program. I never did, but I kind of got a taste of some of the drills when they'd show me, after the fact. But obviously a big name in Wisconsin and throughout bowling. So somewhere along the line, and I don't know if this is high school or college, maybe you can kind of fill in that blank for me. But you crossed paths with Deandra Asbeatty, who was on our episode 22 of this show. And she says that she thought your accent was really funny. That was the first thing she brought up about you when I asked her. And she remembers a time when you were talking about sparkles, and it came out, I'm sure you can say it better than I can, sparkles.
Sparkles Moppy.
Sparkles Moppy. She said
Yeah.
that's always been your thing, and the LOL at the end. How do you fill in the blanks there?
Oh, that's so funny. I would run into Deandra because she grew up in Dyer, Indiana.
Mhm.
So we would cross paths usually like the Teen Masters or some national junior tournament, and we'd only cross paths usually like once a year as a junior. And I remember she used to always wear these like really sparkly socks. And look, like Deandra was, at look, she was a cute girl, right?
Mhm.
So as being a high school boy, like she's a bowler, she's cute. I had to try to make, a way to talk to her, find a way to like intro to talk to Deandra.
Yeah.
And she was a prominent bowler too, right?
Mhm.
She was always a standout. And so I made a comment about her socks and that there was a lot of sparkles and it was a real Brooklyn accent and so then she was laughing about it, and then she was wondering what mop meant because in Brooklyn that was a big thing. Patrick Allen, mop and mop this and mop that, and I would be like, "Oh, Sparkles mop," and she'd be like, "Sparkles moppy," like, and we just started laughing. And then obviously she went to Nebraska as a collegiate bowler, and I went to Saginaw Valley, and then we saw each other a lot more bowling, and then that became our thing, and no one would have any clue, but when we'd see each other, we'd be so excited and be yelling "Sparkles Moppy," and it just became our thing. And till this day, like I lived in Chicago for about 18 months, and I got to see her and her family, and John, who I grew up bowling against juniors with. So I knew John before even Deandra. Like I knew them both before they even met each other.
Wow.
So John was a very, very prominent bowler in the East Coast in New Jersey, um, and was actually really dominant as a junior. And then we ended up just becoming all friends. And now I was seeing her in Chicago a lot. And anyway, till this day, I would say, actually, I think 2 weeks ago when I saw her bowl in the U.S. Open or last week or it was one of the PWBA tournaments, I messaged her, go get him, Sparkles Moppy. So it's still a thing.
She's got to get like a jersey with that on the back. That would be awesome.
Oh my God, she's awesome though. I mean, what an amazing person and bowler and just, just she's great. She's just a great people. She really is.
Yeah.
I can't say enough good things about Deandra.
Her and her sister. I remember them just dominating at gosh, what was it called? It was a huge junior tournament in West Allis, Wisconsin, at AMF West Allis, Red Carpet West Allis. It would be like 16 games on Saturday, and then if you were lucky enough to make the Sunday, it was either 12 or 24 more, and they had long ball returns and. It was quite a scene, but they always showed up, and both of them were very dominant in juniors.
Great bowlers.
Yeah,
Great bowlers in their own right. Cassandra too. She just, was I never really knew Cassandra that well because she was always just a lot older than me. So obviously I knew her through Deandra, but I mean, what a great bowling family. Just
all the way around. Somewhere in this time period, you told me before the show, is when you meet both Big Mike and Bill O'Neill. So why don't we start with Bill? How do you guys end up meeting?
We crossed together at a junior tournament at JBT. It was I believe it was a Pennsylvania conference, and I don't know if anybody knows this about Bill, but he is a huge, huge, notorious BIG fan.
Oh, okay.
So we grew up, and I grew up in Brooklyn, where Biggie was from, and we just started talking about it, and we just kind of like connected based on Biggie. And actually, Bill's AOL, his instant messenger name at that time was "What's Beef," which was a notorious BIG song. So I laughed because I think at that time there was no social media. Obviously, you exchanged, instant messenger names.
Mm-hmm.
So what's beef? We always laugh about it because we just, that's how we met, and we always used to see each other and became really good friends and really quick. We just got along famously from the get-go. Big Mike was friends with Bill, and Big Mike bowled JBT as well. And Big Mike, was a great bowler in his own right in juniors. And they just, instead of us being rivals, we all became friends because we were junior bowling rivals. I mean, I bowled against Big Mike and Bill so many times, but there was never really, it wasn't ever really, we were never really we weren't at each other's throats ever. So yeah, so
Yeah. So at some point here, the decision's got to be made, right? You're all really good junior players. You're good in high school. You figure you want to do this in college. You end up at Saginaw. Did they recruit you, or did you seek that school
no, my brother Dave went to Saginaw Valley,
out?
and he got recruited by, I believe it was Trip Roberts, who is
Okay.
from the very famous bowling Roberts family. And Kip is, a great bowler in his own right. But Trip went to Saginaw Valley, and so did Brian Walchuk, who is also a very good friend of mine. And they recruited my brother to bowl for Saginaw, and then my brother like kind of recruited me. Honest truth is I had a bunch of other schools picked to go before, but my grades weren't great.
Okay.
So and my SATs were kind of mediocre because all I did was bowl and I never really took school that serious. Honestly, like my schedule during the weekends was like bowl action Friday nights, junior Saturdays, junior Sundays, leagues, and then go back to school and just kind of make it through school so I could bowl. But yeah, I went to Saginaw Valley, and that was really probably one of the only schools I think I applied that I actually got into. So I was just like, yeah, I'm a Lummi Bowl. It's a great 4-year university in its own right in Michigan, and I bowled for Saginaw Valley. The thing about Bill was Bill's freshman year, he went to community college. Bill didn't
Uh,
bowl for college out of high school. And keep in mind, Bill was probably the best JBT bowler to ever bowl. Like he's till this day, I think he's got records as a high school bowler. And here, this kid is who's got an unbelievable amount of talent. And I mean, obviously, you see it now, but he wasn't bowling. And so here I am in the university, and I said to Bill, I said, dude, wouldn't it be crazy if we were able to bowl together in college? If you ever think about maybe bowling? And so I opened that conversation, and he kept saying, yeah, I think about it, but I didn't really think he would move away from his home because his whole family and friends and everybody were in Philly at the time in Levittown. And dude, he applied and he got in and he came, and I was shocked. I was shocked that he came to bowl, and he did. And so funny story about that is my brother Dave, who was bowling at the time, I said to Dave, I said, Bill's going to anchor his freshman year. He's that good. And my brother, who thought, he's been on the team a couple of years, is like, no, it's my turn to anchor. He goes, I'm better than Bill. And so after like a few days in tryouts, Bill like was bowling and he was bowling great, but my brother kept this whole like, there's no way, like I should not anchor. Anyway, the coach put Bill as anchor, and then his first tournament he won individuals in college. Like that tournament, he out averaged everybody. Then my brother looked at me and said, "Yeah, you're right. He should be anchoring." I said, "I told you."
as long as we're getting to the Bill in college part, I got to put this up. In fact, I should probably keep it up, right?
Yeah, that's a great picture. This is one of my favorite pictures. So context behind this picture is this is our Saginaw Valley's All-American wall.
Okay.
So all the All-Americans that ever, and it's crazy because if I'm standing in front of Todd Hermans, who was started for the Eagles for like 7 or 8 years. So here I am next to Todd Hermans, who I don't know if he was an All-Pro, but he was a starting offensive lineman for the Philadelphia Eagles for God knows how long. And then here's Bill, who's probably one of the best in his field, and here I am, just some guy like that made All Americans. So
Yeah.
those pictures are still up, I believe, on the Saginaw Valley and the All American wall. So I'm proud of that. I like that picture.
Yeah, that's awesome. I asked Bill what it was like to bowl with you in college.
Oh
And
God.
no, I mean, he said it was great. He said it was great to bowl with you. He mentioned that you bowled leadoff and that you could make enough good shots to show him, how different each pair was. So he goes on to say that, quote, you didn't like bowling leadoff,
I didn't.
but because of that, but that he always told coach that you were vital to his individual success, so he kept you there.
Oh, that just bothers me to my soul. I hated bowling leadoff.
Why? What was so bad about it?
Because this is how the game. And first off, he's full of it, saying that I didn't make enough good shots. Okay, I used to start every time we moved to a new pair. Now when you bowl college, it's 10 on a pair. So the moves were really important when you move pairs. And being a leadoff absolutely was terrible because I had to guess what this next pair was doing. So my games would normally start with like, I would start on the left lane and I would go through the nose and split. And then I would say, oh, Bill, they're about 2 to 3 boards drier. He'd get up, move, strike. And then I get up on the right lane. I'd make a 2 to 3 board move left. And then I would 2-8-10. And then I'd say, oh, the right lane's the same. And he'd get up and double. So I'd start the game up. I'd start the game up with an 18 and he'd be on a double. And then I'm digging myself out of an early hole. And he's making himself, a 4-time first-team All-American and 3-time Player of the Year. And he didn't win his 4th-year Player of the Year because he actually tore his bicep working out in the gym. So I don't know if anybody knew that, but he just couldn't handle the weight. That's kind of what it was, So
wow. So you said that you could see it growing up. He's the most talented guy in JBT. He's going to be our anchor. When he comes in, and obviously you have to convince your brother, but what was it that kind of showed everybody, oh my gosh, we're dealing with what really turned out to be a generational talent?
I told my brother after his 3rd year of college, after my brother graduated and we were in our tail end, that he was going to be a PBA Hall of Famer, quote unquote. I said it, and I told my brother that he was going to at least win 10 titles. No, there was no doubt. First off, his father is an amazing coach, and his father just was able to work with him, and they have such a dynamic coaching with him as just listening to his father as a coach, that he was able to just really take his game so far, and his basic, just the way, Bill was always kind of bigger in stature. He was always a big kid, but he was able to kind of use that weight to his advantage, his power, his rev rate, but the way he used his weight, instead of his weight going forward at the foul line or, falling over this, his weight was always straight down to the floor. So his balance and just the way his physical ability was amazing. His rev rate was always a lot higher than everybody else. His nickname in college and high school was Buzzsaw, Bill O'Neill. Not Real Deal Bill O'Neill. That came later. But yeah, Buzzsaw Bill O'Neill. And the one thing that separated Bill from really anybody else that I knew was his mental game. His mental game was so strong. He was fiery, but his hunger, his killing attitude. On the lanes, he was nobody's friend. If he lost, he would leave and you weren't able to talk to him. Great guy would do anything for you, but on the lanes, he was a killer. And I feel like he's still like that. And I feel like there's a lot of pros these days that aren't like that. They're too busy taking selfies with the people they lose to, and they're just so happy to be there. And Bill was never that. Bill wanted to kill you. If he had your throat, he would take it.
Wow. Do you think that rubbed anybody the wrong way along the way?
No, because he was so good. He was so nice off the lanes. It was such a Jekyll and Hyde to a certain extent. There was a great story, a junior bowling story, where I bowled him in the finals of a JBT, and he had the front 9, and I already bowled 230. The game was already out, and he actually hit his ankle, and he guttered.
Oh.
And I had this look on my face because the 300 back then was actually something to be proud of. I don't know, and he came back and he looked at me and I fell off the chair laughing. And we laughed for a good 20 minutes because at first I thought he was going to put his foot through the ball return because he just guttered in front of all these people in the finals, but we laughed for so long. But no, he was always a great kid off the lanes. Never really had any problems with anybody off the lanes. Now, Big Mike, on the other hand, that's a whole nother story. Big Mike definitely rubbed people the wrong way. Was always rubbing everybody the wrong way. But Big Mike was awesome. Big Mike was one of the most loyal friends. He would always have your back. And if somebody if somebody messed with Bill, you messed with Mike, and you didn't want to mess with Mike. Mike was a scary kid for sure when he was back in that age too, when we were in high school.
Yeah. As Bill is having all this success, like you said, 3-time Player of the Year, he's 4-time All-American. Is there anything that you take from either watching him, talking to him, being around him that you can apply to your own game and make yourself better?
It's funny because I would always try to like pick his brain. And I was never wired the way he was. I always had too much anxiety. I was always nervous when I shouldn't be, and he never showed his nerves. And I feel like regardless of how many tips and tricks that I could try to like pull from him, I could never replicate like how he was. So, quick story about how just different mine and his game was. We bowled a college tournament in Dayton. It was probably one of the greatest college bowling performances I've ever seen. Bill averaged, I believe it was like 252 for 9 games. And
Oh,
he started his second day of qualifying 300, 300, and then pocket 710 in the first frame of the third game. And obviously, he won the tournament individually, running away with it. But the reason why I bring up the story is because me and him used the same exact bowling ball. It was a Brunswick Fuse. It was right after the high rollers. We had the ball drilled the same exact layout to the number.
hmm.
And I used that ball for 9 games and averaged 202.
Wow.
So, and I couldn't strike.
Okay.
So, I tried to pick his brain. I've tried to pick Belmonte's brain. I've tried to pick as many brains as I could, but it's just I'm wired differently, and was always had too much anxiety as a bowler to be successful, I think, at the highest level.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We're all kind of wired a little differently. But how about Coach Dorian? What was it like to compete for him, and and be a part of what really turned out to be a long line of success in college bowling there?
Coach Dorian was different, to say the least. Was he was a great coach in his own right when it came to like physically helping a lot of the I'd say middle of the road B team players. But Coach Dorian wasn't exactly a high level coach like I'd say Gordon Vatican was in Wichita.
Hmm.
But also, to be fair to Dan, we practiced at a church called Zion Lanes that had above ground ball returns
Hmm.
and spray gun for an oil machine. So that's where we practiced all throughout our college career. And as you know, when we got into like the middle of like the second, third, the synthetics were starting to come and be really a big part of the game. Resin and high performance was in its, was definitely in its heyday. And we were, practicing for a lot of these big tournaments, sectionals and IBCs at this church, trying to practice. And we all know that's impossible to do, especially these days. And I feel like a lot of the high level programs were just a way step ahead of us because of the fact they were able to practice on synthetics, able to, drill bowling balls and just do a lot of things that we couldn't do at Saginaw Valley. But Coach Dorian was fun in the fact where he gave us a lot of freedom. We were allowed to drink during college tournaments when in Wichita wasn't. So there was a good story where, like Sean Rash, who bowled for Wichita at the same time we did, him and the team came in to, hang out with us because we were always friends with Sean, and we were all drinking and having a good time. And here's the whole Wichita team just hanging out, like drinking bottled water. And we got like, the whole team got just absolutely mangled. Saginaw Valley, we drank till 3, 4 a.m. and we would get up and beat Wichita, and we would run them over on 2 hours of sleep all hungover. So, we were just built differently, honestly, as a bowling program. But, it definitely was fun bowling for Dan Dorian. There's no doubt about it. He was definitely a player's coach for sure.
Yeah, I gotta ask. I remember either my junior or senior year, Saginaw had a team in the Wisconsin Collegiate Bowling Conference. Did you ever have a chance to bowl in the conference?
We didn't bowl a lot of conference tournaments, but the conferences I remember were always high scoring. They were always easy. And the competition was always a little bit less, but we did make trips out to Wisconsin to bowl. I know a few times, but I don't really remember. There was a major Wisconsin tournament out there
At
that was
Bolero in the
in
beginning of the year.
correct.
Yeah.
Yes, it was actually probably one of the first few tournaments. So we did make that. I believe it was like at that time probably like a 5 or 6, maybe 8 hour drive to Wisconsin from Michigan. But yeah, we bowled a couple conferences here and there. Me and Bill, we and a lot of the bowlers who we thought were kind of I would say above the conference tournaments, but we would kind of we'd skip those a little bit here and there. So
Sure. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, Tell me about the highlight of your college career. Maybe there's more than one. Maybe there's more than two or three. But if you could pick maybe one that stands out, for better or for worse, what would it be?
Wow, the highlight of my college bowling career.
Yeah.
Uh, Obviously, getting called up to as an All American. So I was a two-time second team All American, which still chaps my ass till this day. Because I feel like as a junior that I should have been hands down first team, and the numbers and the stats back me up. But I bowled a lot of tournaments, so I still have them sour to the people who were picking. And I'd love for somebody out there who's listening to like pull those numbers and stats out because I swear by this day that I should have been first team. Um, Bowling with my brother for 2 to 3 years was the highlight. It was so much fun. My brother, if you've ever met him or know him, he's a blast to bowl with, and he's crazy. He's talk about wearing your emotions on his sleeves. You never knew what the kid was going to do after he struck, after he's made a spare. Uh, he kept it completely interesting and completely fun. And if you ever ask or talk to Bill or get him on the show and ask him what it was like bowling with my brother, he would just laugh and just say, "Holy crap, I can't even." Because we used to bowl with Bill at USBC tournament too, the
Okay.
national tournament for a while, and we kind of kept me, my brother, and Bill, and then Bill always loved bowling with us. He knew we might not win the tournament, but he'd always have a blast doing it. So I think bowling with my brother, and as well as getting called for All American. So I'm gonna give it a half highlight.
Yeah, those are great. I mean, I have a brother. He never really got into the sport, but I can't imagine the intense rivalries that you have with two brothers who are both competitive and really at that level.
Oh, we bowled against each other. We bowled with each other. Uh, and Jeff and my oldest brother was actually a PBA. PBA. He was a collegiate bowler himself, which was pretty impressive. He did it while he went to law school in Miami. So he was going to law school while he was bowling. So yeah, we had it was three of us. We're all pretty competitive. But I swear to this day, anybody ever asks, I was always the best one. I don't care. I don't care what they say. I was always the best one. Uh, I just always had the pedigree for it because when I was a kid, I traveled a lot more and bowled a lot more tournaments than Jeff and Dave did.
Uh,
Dave was always grounded because Dave was always doing something stupid, and Jeff was just too much. He went to Columbia as an engineer for 4 years with Ivy League, and then he went to Miami Law School. So he was too involved in his education and his just then to actually like pursue it as a bowler.
yeah. Um, a lot of collegiate bowlers finish up their degree or they run out of eligibility, and there's kind of a downward trajectory. I mean, I'm exhibit A of that right now. How was your bowling once your time at Saginaw was all said and done?
It was a tough go around because in my heart and in my mind, and I wanted to always be, a Bill O'Neill, a Mike Fagan, a Sean Rash. Those are the guys I bowled up against. Mike Fagan I traveled with a lot too as a kid. He was always a travel partner with me as a kid. We always used to travel together and bowl against each other. And after I graduated college, like Bill was, at that time going through tour trials and trying to get on tour and we were doing the high roller stuff and trying to make it through amateurs. But Bill and Fagan in their college careers and Sean Rash as well took their college and they succeeded in their college a lot more than I did and were becoming successful in their own right. Me, I was struggling. And it was more of my work ethic. I blame it on myself a lot that I didn't have as much hard as work ethic as I should have when I was younger. When I was in college, I was too busy socializing and enjoying that aspect of my life than actually practicing and working hours to kind of craft, be a better bowler. And then after I graduated, I definitely kept bowling, but I found it hard to transition to the PBA and to be on tour because you needed financial ability to do it. I didn't, have the money, or wasn't as successful as an amateur to build up like a bank to be able to back myself. I was never as good as Bill was, who was able to do that and just win amateur tournaments and keep making big checks at USBC tournament and high rollers and able to kind of fund himself that way. I was struggling, so I decided to go get my master's in web development and communications. So multimedia, stayed at Saginaw a few more years and decided to go in the professional career route and work for Fortune 500 companies. So I decided at a certain time in my life that bowling probably wasn't going to be it. Even though deep down inside I always wanted to become like that bowler and become that guy you see on TV every week.
Sure. You did do the PBA for a while, though, didn't you?
I did. I bowled the World Series of Bowling for years. I bowled the regionals. I bowled the Masters. I bowled 2 or 3 times. U.S. Open. Times I was bowling as much as I could. And you really get a wake up call when you bowl the World Series of Bowling when it was at South Point. I crossed with Wes Malott for 5 days. Talk about a wake up call. I stayed in the house with those guys, which should be a reality show, honestly. The house was like me, Bill, Belmonte, Fagan. I think Malott was in that house. Tom Doherty, I stayed with.
Wow.
Dino Castillo, DJ Archer. I mean, I stayed in that. You want to talk about a fun time, but also a wake up call and how actually these guys are on another level. Bowl World Series of Bowling, cross Wes Malott. Watch him stand 2 arrows left of you and throw 2 arrows right of you and go 400 over and you go 100 over or 50 over or even minus. It's a
Wow.
wake up call how good these guys are until you actually do it and bowl with them.
Yeah. Are these big events, as far as the stamina you need and all that stuff, is it the grind that they all say it is?
Oh, it is such a grind. It is, you know, just perfecting your craft, but also physical takes a toll on you. I know Wes was having knee problems at the time that I was crossing with him, and these guys just not knowing where the next paycheck is coming from. Relying a lot on the sponsorships they get from the ball companies to kind of pay their bills. But these guys have families and kids, and a lot of them have businesses, pro shops, or they have wives that have benefits they can get on medical insurance, and there's a lot of pressure on these guys to succeed, especially if they have families and bills. So much
Yeah.
easier if you're a single guy. Kyle Troop right now is playing with house money. He's a single guy. He's made almost 500K this year. Doesn't have family. I mean, do you want to talk about a free arm swing? Like, some of these other guys have 2, 3 kids, that they're, they have to pay and pay for, and they have to support. So it's definitely a grind if your bills are adding up.
Yeah. As you're bowling those events and you're not having the kind of success that you hoped for or you thought you should, at some point you say, okay, that's it, I'm folding. What was that point for you? And, how was it to kind of, walk away from those PBA events?
The truth of the matter is, I still have that that dream has never died. It never died. It's a battle that I fight every day. That I watch bowling on TV and I do the podcast. The problem is I work full time. I have a very good job, and I spend 45, 50 hours a week at the office. I spend some time on my phone, on my laptop. So eventually, like when you get to that, or your salary and whatever you're making and your income, you get to that point where you just say, you know what, like I'm never gonna make this much money as a bowler, so I just gonna, keep doing what I'm doing, even though my dreams and my hopes are still with the PBA tour, and maybe one day if it ever goes to like a 25 stop or a 30 stop, and they're paying enough money where I could feel like maybe take a couple of years off and go bowl, I might do it as a 45-year-old. You might see me come out of retirement and say, let's do it, let's practice. But physically, it's a toll. I mean, right now, if I bowl 5 games in a tournament or a 7-game tournament, I feel like a truck ran over me. My knee hurts, my back hurts. And I go to the gym every day. I try to take care of myself. Bowling is a whole nother ball game when you're bowling games.
Yeah. Ibuprofen becomes your best friend, right?
It does, yes.
All right. So you mentioned the podcast, and we can't, I can't go any longer without, without bringing this up. Sweep the rack.
I'm famous these days. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not my
So,
bowling, I'll tell you that.
all right. So, at some point several years ago, you and Mike started up, and, I asked him about it. I said, what was it like? How did that go down? He said, starting the podcast was something I, as in Mike, had thought about for a while because that he believed, based on what was out there at the time, that he could provide better content. He said that Rob, you were the first and only person that he reached out to. You got a long history of chopping it up about bowling, and you and him had done that on a regular basis privately for a long time. So it's natural. What was it like, on your end? He comes to you and says, hey, what do you think?
I always said that bowling talk, like the stuff we used to talk about in bowling pro shops, should be out there for people. Because as a kid, we used to spend hours in Staten Island in a pro shop who John Simonelli, whose father used to drill balls for Mark Roth in Brooklyn. And we spent hours in his pro shop talking bowling. Talking shit, bowling, all kinds of like fun stuff. And I always said, you know what, should be out there. And then when the internet and the podcast came out, my background was in, multimedia and communications. I thought it would be perfect. I love bowling. I know how to at least set some of this stuff up and do some of the back end work. One day I went to hang out with Bill. I spent some time at Bill's house when Bill's first child was born. I went to go see his kid, which is go spend some time. We ended up watching Monday Night Football at Big Mike's house in his basement. And we were just talking. And that's when we first kind of was like, hey, like, I really think like what we just literally just sat in his basement for 3 hours barely even watched a Monday Night Football game, just talking about like where the state of the game is, talk shit on the USBC, talk shit on the PBA, just kind of where like we could improve the game. And we just said, you know what, like we should start that. But we always were in contact about let's start it. I had zero experience doing any of it. Big Mike, zero experience doing it. So eventually I just started looking into, okay, how do I even start something like this? Because this is before, a lot of the video platforms, and we started on audio. And, how do I get us on iTunes? How do I get this here? So I just started on my free time, just looking it up. And then, eventually me and Mike just said, you know what, let's just get on the mic and do it. We had zero experience. Like we didn't. And here's the thing is, I was shocked how good Big Mike was as like a lead host. Like he looked like he was experienced doing this for years, and how good he was just with the transitions and how, smooth he was on the microphone. And I said, after like 5 minutes of talking to him and him doing his thing, I said, this is gonna work and this is gonna be really good. And we did it, the first episode, we taped it, and then we played it for a lot of people, including Bill. And Bill came back to us and Bill's like, yo, this is really good. He's like, I am very surprised how good this is. So we filmed another episode after that, which, we just kind of put the pilot aside and we actually filmed the first one. And then we put it out on a second try and we got such great feedback on it. We just said, okay, like now how do we work on guests? And having, the connections that I have, not just Bill, like growing up, with a Fagan, Mike had, a Matt O'Grady, bowling with him was one of our first guests. We were just able to reach out, and this was the first of its kind. Like, and here's the thing is bowling always had media content, right?
Mm-hmm.
Videos and ball reviews, but it was always biased. There was always a bowling ball company behind it. There was always a reason for a lot of this media content. Till this day, there's still a lot of behind the, scenes for media people putting out media content, but in reality, they're sponsored by a ball company and they're trying to get visibility on the bowling balls, right? That's what a lot of our podcast is, so raw and so unbiased and so honest that people appreciate that. They really enjoy listening because we don't hold any punches. I mean, some of the stuff that's happened on our show that, like, Ryan Simonelli got suspended on our show for talking about the PBA lane conditions. I've gotten angry emails from people, from pros, from just in general from people. But look, that's how I felt at the time. We get bashed a lot of times for not having our facts straight. We're not journalists. We're speculators. Okay, we speculate stuff, and you know what? We want to be entertaining. We prank call bowling shops. We do so much stuff, and it's so much fun. We have such a blast doing it.
Yeah. I did, also ask Bill. I said, what's it like having these guys, really pulling for you, on every episode, it seems. And he said that it's awesome that those guys have my back the way they do. Not many people have friends that ride with them the way that Rob and Mike do for me. That's gotta hit you right here.
I'm telling you, and it's funny because, and this is just the God's honest truth, I have never ever been an ounce of jealous of Bill's success. And people ask me that all the time because we grew up together, and people that grew up with me and they knew him always will ask me, close friends of mine say, hey, were you ever jealous of Bill? I was like, I remember when he first made his first TV show, I was at the buffet at the Bellagio. I don't know what I was doing, but I remember the first time he won, I was so happy. I was telling everybody, Bill's on TV, Bill's on TV. He won the tat. And he called me at like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. they finished. It was crazy. He called me up. He's like, I won the tat. I'm like, this is unbelievable. Like it was, it gets to the point where you're not just friends. You become so close that you just become brothers. I've known him since I was 15, 14 years old. I'm 40. We've known each other for almost, 25 years. And we're so happy for his success. The run he made at the U.S. Open. The one thing I regret, and I'll be honest with you, the one thing I regret is not staying on the East Coast, because Big Mike was at the U.S. Open run for him at Cavalier and was able to yell and scream and do a lot of the things that I wasn't able to do. Yes, and I see a comment by Robert Hamilton. If you look, there's the Cheetah Championships at the World Series of bowling, where I was on TV in the front row with the plaid shirt and yelling and screaming, and I personally take responsibility for that title. I do. I was in all of his opponent's ear, that 3 matches, and I have a picture. And I should have sent that to you before, but I have a picture of me and him holding the trophy at the end on the set on the lanes after he won that title. So yeah, it just is amazing to just see his success and just keep pulling for him every tournament. And I think that's the really reason why I have a Flow Bowling subscription, is to watch Bill. I don't really watch anybody else. Maybe if they're crossing with him,
Sure. Yeah. Was your show on Flow Bowling for a while?
It was. So we were excited because we were pretty new. We were still, I don't know what it was, but a year into it. And Flow Bowling approached us and said, hey, why don't you come on? And I said, this is a great way for us to get exposure. I'm not really sure how long it would have lasted. But we were on Flow. We were behind the paid wall. I saw a lot of our fans didn't like that because now they had to get a Flow Bowling subscription to listen to our show. And then the worst thing happened that you could never do to me and Big Mike. They started to filter us and censor us.
Huh.
And it happened a lot during the PBA acquisition, when Bolero, that deal was coming through, and we started being critical of the PBA and Bolero, and we just started being honest about a lot of the real issues that a lot of the competitive bowlers had problems with, because Bolero isn't exactly known for its competitive friendly bowling. They're a very social, very open play orientated. That's where a lot of the business is. So we were critical. we started to have to send our episodes to Flow prior to them airing it, and then they were going through and they were cutting some stuff out. It reminded me of that scene, and I don't know if you ever watched the movie or know Howard Stern's background, where he was with CNBC and they were starting to filter
that's
him.
exactly what I was thinking of.
Yeah. He was miserable, and I said, you know what, Mike, I'd rather do this for free for the people and have an honest and open discussion about how to help bowling as well as be critical about it, and do it. And we weren't doing it for the money. We're still not doing it for the money. You don't make any money doing this. Like, it's just for fun, and we have a good time doing it. And now I'm known for being the podcast guy than I am ever as the bowler, which I've had to accept, but I have embraced.
Yeah. When and why did you decide to go both YouTube, Facebook, and podcasting versus just a straight podcast?
It was during the pandemic, and we were doing audio, and then we wanted to do live calls, and we were like being live. We did, and I think we were better at being live than I was going back and editing and doing all kinds of. So the pandemic, all of a sudden, Zoom started coming out more, and like there was a lot of streaming, and then all of a sudden we noticed that there was some I want to say competitors. I don't want to call, because I think everybody in bowling right now, there's such little media that we're all should be supporting each other, right? Like Beef and Barnsey. I know Inside Bowling and Flanagan. So we were all on the same, but we saw like Beef and Barnsey coming with video. And then I saw a couple other, like Inside Bowling, they had some video platform. And I looked at Mike, I said, Mike, I need to start doing video. And Mike doesn't know a thing about technicalities about anything like this, how to like download he doesn't know any of this. He comes on, he does it. I'm behind the scenes doing pretty much all of the, posting it, doing all of that. And I looked into it and I'm like, I found this great platform called StreamYard that you use, which makes it super easy to use. And we learned, and I love hearing the people on the chat room live. It was incredible for us. And it gave us the ability to do so much more, showing YouTube videos and just talking to people live. Yeah. So
there are, some other characters, besides Robert, who come up a lot on the show, be it through the live chat or, when you're not in the middle of it, whatever. Who are some of those people who really kind of stand out and maybe unbeknownst to them really make this thing go?
I mean, there's a lot of people who come in and out that I grew up with that watch the show. I hear from people that I haven't heard from in 10 years that are messaging me saying that they love the show. So just hearing people talk about it that you grew up with that are watching, which is amazing. There are guys like Robert Hamilton, who's in the chat room now. He's always watching. He's a big follower of the show. He grew up with us bowling JBT in the New York area. So just seeing and hearing and being back, like reconnecting with a lot of these people that you've never really known. I went to Bowl the Tat this past summer, and I had my Soup Direct shirt on, and I ended up making the finals, and I bowled a 2-frame roll-off, and I'm throwing strikes, and all of a sudden I'm hearing people in the back going, Soup Direct, and it's just like, it's awesome. Like, it's like, it's the bowling fame that I always wanted as a bowler, but now I'm getting it as a podcast host.
Yeah.
So, hey, I'll take it where I can get it, right?
Are you wearing the same shirt in this picture that you are?
No. See, this is what is it called? Walter Hagen. That's an Under Armour. So.
Gotcha. All right.
No. This is my work shirt, so I don't have to iron it. I have to wear a collar, but I don't want to iron my shirts. So.
There you go. Yeah. Okay, so I also, noticed that you guys mentioned Jeff Riggles quite a bit. Yeah. So I asked him. He's been on this show too. So I asked him about about the show, and he says he never misses it. Usually catches it on replay, but he considers that a pretty high endorsement. So I want you to watch and hear what he had to say and react to it. He calls you two the bomb throwers of the bowling podcasting world. He says you're willing to say just about anything, which makes you highly entertaining in the way that two loud guys at the end of the bar can be.
Oh.
He says if you follow us on social media, you know that I have sometimes been critical when they fail to do their homework and make an error. They have said, like you did earlier, that you don't care because you're fans, not journalists. But he would think even fans would like to get their facts right when they offer their opinions. He says if you did a little more research and backed your strong and entertaining opinions more factually, that he thinks you'd have a much stronger show, and he'd even comp you an 11thframe.com subscription so you could have a handy research reference.
Look, I'm not going to say he's not the only person to reach out to us to offer their assistance when it comes to fact finding. Shed Murphy at the USPC has reached out many times to me, telling me like if you need any help on facts and data and metrics and anything, he could get that for us. And Shed was very supportive. He listens to our show. As for Jeff, we've had Jeff on the show numerous times. We love Jeff. Jeff is always keeping me on my toes when it comes to fact finding. I do a lot more homework than I used to do before I go on the shows to make sure I don't make an error. But there are some times that I know that, it's my opinions are going to be critical. If I do make an error, I'll be the first to admit it that I made an error and I was wrong. I've done it numerous times, but we definitely, don't consider ourselves journalists. We want to entertain first. We don't want to, give people breaking news or, any kind of that. We want to make the people laugh, enjoy talking about bowling, and, just have fun. Like, and there's so much seriousness on these bowling chats and Facebook posts, and just everybody is so serious these days on social media, and everybody's so critical of each other and this, and we just want to have fun and entertain. Sometimes we get our shit wrong, but I take Jeff's opinion, I take it as highly regarded. I do. I remember when Jeff first posted about our podcast, I was walking into work and I saw Jeff, shout out our podcast, really giving the approval. I remember how much that actually like kind of validated what we were doing and how much it really meant to us. And I don't think really Jeff knows that, but it really did. And then we started having to take it a little bit more serious about some of the stuff that we were saying, because we didn't realize that there was a lot of people that were in the bowling world actually listening to what we were saying, and that we actually had to come correct. And I feel like we've been doing that a little bit better these last few months. But there are times when we do slip up and I do make errors, and I know Jeff is there to catch me.
Yeah. No, I'm in the same boat with you as far as Jeff sharing, the links to this show and all that. I've really just started talking to Jeff online. I never really met him personally. I knew who he was, of course, because we're in the same state. But boy, every time he shares a link, that's huge for me, and I really appreciate it. As I said, you've had him on your show. He's been on my show. You've had, lots of great guests. So who do you, how do you decide rather who to pursue as a guest and when?
That is a good question. Well, we went on this whole like, okay, let's just get as many names as we can. Doesn't matter who it was, where it was. If I could bring on a Sean Rash, if I could bring on a Anthony Simonson, we were just trying to build up a following, and the way to do that is to get people that have names in the industry to come on. Then we started going after, okay, how can we get some of the legends on the game? Because me and Mike, we were, obviously big bowling fans growing up, watching it, bowling against the people. And then all of a sudden we were able to get guys like Norm Duke, Walter Ray, and growing up, Nelson Byrne Jr. we had on the show. These are guys, these are guys we grew up watching on TV every day. And I remember, like, I'm the biggest Norm Duke fan. Like, he was my favorite bowler growing up. Love the guy. Our interview with Norm Duke is probably my favorite interview that I've done that kind of stuck out. When he told us that he was the handyman in his condo that he owns. If you didn't hear that, it was probably the funniest thing. And then I asked him, so you were like Mr. Miyagi, you used to come like to the doors and fix things. Now imagine if I was bowling on a TV and I was just trying to do my form, and imagine Norm Duke showing up at your front door and your kitchen sink is broke and he's got like a hat on and a tool belt. It was by far the funniest thing. So, um, after a while, when we started, getting more of these guys on the show, we had, Jason Couch on and just legends, guys that, grew up. Then we started going after a lot of the current people who are having success, winning tournaments. We started going that route. And then we realized something which was kind of odd, that the views that we were getting, it didn't really matter who was coming on. People were watching our show regardless of who was coming on and interviewing. And I said to Mike, I said one day, I said, Mike, I said, let's start just, not doing interviews every week. Let's do a live show. We'll do it once a week. We'll do it at the same time. And well, so everybody knows it's on, like every week, like Monday Night Raw for wrestling. I'm a wrestling fan. I used to be, at least. Everybody knows it's on at 8. Monday Night Football. Everyone knows it's on at 9 p.m. on ESPN. So like, let's do a weekly show. And then when we do have an interview, it makes it that much better. So that's what we do every sporadic time. Like, so we'll have people reach out to us. I've had numerous people reach out to being like, hey, when am I coming on? And I'm like, dude, anytime you want. Like, we're open to everything. So we love the guests. We're gonna keep having them, and it's gonna be as not as consistent every week. That was just too much work. It was just way too much work trying to find a guest every week. It really was, especially for two of us who have full-time jobs who can't do this.
Sure. It is a lot of work. I'll tell you firsthand.
Yes.
The one guy that you haven't had on the show is Tim Buck. I reached out to him and asked, for a quote, and he responded, "No thanks." Do you know Tim Buck? Have you met Tim Buck? If not, what happens when the stars align and you end up running into each other at some tournament or something?
Oh my goodness. I'm so happy you brought this up. Because like, we do a thing called Worst of the Week every week, right?
Yes, you do.
And it's a beautiful skit, and we're not getting rid of it because the fans love it so much, and we've had so much, like, we're getting tagged now. So Worst of the Week, if anybody knows Worst of the Week, it's we highlight the worst posts on the internet throughout the week. Message boards, Twitter. There's so much just really awful misinformation and just terrible stuff that you get throughout the week. And so we said, you know what? Let's just start highlighting it. Well, we come across the SBC discussion board, which is by far the funniest, greatest gift that keeps on giving, because there's just so much people. It's a huge group. It's thousands.
It's like 30,000 plus.
Oh, it's so big. So there's so much information that gets posted, and there's so much bad information that gets posted. And we noticed that Tim Buck was just always kind of keeping it, like, he was like the soup Nazi, like, if you said something wrong or you did something wrong, it was like, no posts for you, next, and like, he was stopping comments, and he was like posting like, you can't do this and you can't say that, and he's like ruling it with an iron fist. And we just thought this was so entertaining. I mean, super entertaining. I've asked him on the message boards numerous times to come on. He won't do it. Not sure why. I mean, seems like a fun guy. But I would, I appreciate what Tim, he lets us post our group on, he lets us post it on the group page. So we have such a blast because we get viewers from that. But eventually Tim is just not going to have it anymore. He's going to just ban us. So I'll wait for that day. But until then, thank you, Tim, if you're listening, for letting us post our show on the board and getting it out to all the bowling fans out there.
Yeah, no, he's done the same for this show. I appreciate that too, and it's it's definitely a widely followed Facebook group with a lot of different characters. That's for sure. Mike again, said, now doing the podcast is still as fun as when we started. It's a hobby that you guys get a lot of enjoyment out of, and I would think that if that wasn't the case, that maybe you'd think about, about canceling it. But it seems like you've got a lot of momentum right now. I mean, where do you see this thing going from this point forward?
I'm actually in the middle of building a very, very good website for our podcast. Me and Mike, we want to start writing bowling articles, and not like how Jeff writes his articles about being very informative and facts. We want to write articles that shape the game a little bit and the entertainment value of the sport. Mike wrote a great article about what the PBA league should turn into.
So more
Okay,
like a column, you're saying.
opinion column.
Mhm.
I've started writing an article about how the PBA could make their pros more entertaining, right? And I think just watching the PWBA show we just watched, I feel like that's what the PWBA is missing right now. They're missing an entertainer slash bowler. You know who an entertainer slash bowler is? Pete Weber, Kyle Troop.
Through and through.
Those are two guys that can win tournaments and are entertainers. They understood that. So that's an article that we want that maybe we're going to start writing that, doing some more of that. And to be honest with you, we have a lot of ideas that we, thought about doing, maybe running tournaments, running some kind of action term, just, kind of doing things like that and attaching our names to it. But for now, like I want to get the website up and running, and obviously doing that is a lot of work. And then once the website, we start writing maybe some opinion-based articles, and maybe eventually start reaching out to some outside sponsors, to see if we can get some sponsors, because I know we've had some interest in that. But I don't want them to be bowling sponsors, where if Storm is a good example, if Storm makes a really bad bowling ball, I want to be able to say on my show that they made a bad bowling ball. I don't want every bowling ball to be the greatest bowling ball ever. I want to be able to not affect my what I say on the show, right? So yeah, we'll see. I mean, we love doing it, and I feel like that's why people like our show, is because it shows that we love doing it and we have a great time doing it.
Yeah. In the meantime, it sounded like, both you and Mike took a little time off from competing, during the COVID pandemic and the associated shutdowns and lockdowns. What's it been like getting back into it?
Honestly, my motivation isn't what it used to be bowling. I can't really hardly practice during the week. So that hurts me because I started bowling more tournaments every weekend. Out here is a good scratch tournament once a month, and I'm finding myself finishing in like 10th and 11th out of like 60, and I hate that because I should be in the top five, at least my opinion of where I am as a bowler. But I don't practice a lot. So I'll I'll bowl once a month. It'll be that tournament. I hate bowling league. If anybody knows I hate bowling league. I hate the house tournament leagues, house tournament. I hate house leagues. I hate the commitment. It's usually a 3 hour, like during a work week. I wake up like 5 a.m. It's a lot for me to go. So it's fun getting back into it a little bit, but I'm really like struggling right now to try to really find that motivation to really start getting involved in like the big tournaments. So we'll see. Obviously, I don't want to do something I don't want to do. I like bowling. I like bowling when I want to bowl, not feel like I'm getting forced to bowl.
Sure. I want to play a little video that really made me think of you guys, just because I hadn't heard either of you bring it up on your show. This is from several weeks ago, about 6 weeks ago. I had PBA Commissioner Tom Clark on, and great conversation. But for some reason, like I said, I thought of you guys because I asked about the PBA schedule, and I said, look, there's the strike derby's coming up. It kind of ends there. And I know you guys have talked about the schedule, so I'm hoping you'll be able to hear the audio on this. But let me tell me the next time we're going to see bowling on TV. Last I checked the schedule, it basically ended with the strike derby, and I know they've got a little time off here. But what are the next events for people to check out the PBA on TV?
Yeah, well, probably not till January. Oh no, you know what? We're going to have a surprise event in October. And I won't even say what it's going to be yet, but we're going to have an event in October, and it's going to be on an NFL Sunday after you talk about following a good show. When you follow the NFL, you're following a very good show. So, I mean, that's a lot of viewers, and we get big audience for it. And we're going to do one in October.
Have you heard anything about this surprise event in October?
I could probably take a guess of what it's going to be. I'll be
Yeah.
honest with you.
Yeah.
I don't. I don't want to make a comment because I kind of feel like I do have some inside info on what that event is going to be.
Okay.
But it's not going to be, to me, it won't be like something like a highly competitive PBA event. Let's just put it like that. I feel like it'll be more of like a competitive, like it'll be like a social, maybe some people bowling that people know. So anyway, that being said, yes, PBA schedule we were very critical of the PBA because we didn't have a schedule last year. It came out really late. We haven't seen one for next year. So yes, we're critical of the PBA. We love Tom Clark, honestly. We've had him on the show. Just talking to him gave me a whole new perspective on what he's done, what he's planning on doing. But this was before the Bolero purchase. I do feel like the Bolero purchase and, bringing in Coley has really affected a lot of what Tom Clark can do and what his vision was. I do really honestly believe that. I really do feel like Coley has really influenced a lot of the PBA, good or bad, on what's happening. So let's wait and see. Look, they brought in a lot more money, than they normally have had. So obviously Bolero's done a great job with that aspect. Bowling's been on TV a lot, which is great. But how far can they do it? Can this be a consistent thing where every year where they're adding money and they're bringing shows on live events? Or is this just going to be a flash in the pants where it's just maybe 2 or 3 years and then they realize that they're losing money and then they look to get rid of it or sell it, and they just so I'm looking for long-term security for the PBA, for the PBA pros. I want to see I don't know, come out with a 5-year sponsor where they tell us how much money. A lot of the sponsors they're bringing in, they're not being very detailed on what the sponsorship entails. We've talked about that on Sweep the Rack. They brought in like Manscaped. They didn't say what the money was or how much money they were adding. I think what was the other candy bar? I believe it was like Snickers they brought in, or no one really said how much money that was. So yeah, there's a lot of things we're critical on, but as of right now, they are putting their money where their mouths are. They are putting up a lot of money, and it seems like Bolero is doing, an okay job in that aspect of it. I'm very critical on certain aspects but we'll see. I think gambling is a big thing. We talk about it a lot. I think bowling needs to be gambling on TV, needs to be live betting. We need to see bowling on the sports books in Vegas. We need to see bowling as a DraftKings app, the Fox app. We're very critical of that. And I feel like, in my opinion, growing up in Brooklyn, the gambling capital of the world, I call it, other than Vegas, sports betting and sports books, people will be interested in bowling that normally are not interested in bowling, just based on the fact that they could win money betting on it. So I feel like if the PBA was smart, that's the route that they would go.
Okay. We'll wait and see on that one.
So.
Like you said, we've got a lot of comments, more than usual. Let's see. Boy, I don't even know if I want to read that one.
That's a Chappelle skit quote.
The 5 o'clock free crack giveaway.
That's Tyrone Bigham's, baby. I know it.
Oh boy. Wow. Jonathan NG wants to say hi.
Appreciate it. Supporting. Yeah. Always see Jonathan on supporting Sweep the Rack. So thank you.
I was messaging back and forth with Will Welch earlier. He says, don't call him Dave or Jeff's brother. Let's know what's up.
It's tough. I'll tell you, when there's 3 of us and we all have the same last name and, we all have lived all over the place. You get called Dave and Jeff, and they get called Dave and Jeff, Rob, and now it's like, oh, you're the brother of the guy who does that podcast, right? So I'm all about that, all about that. Never doubt it.
Yeah, for sure. Of course, Robert Hamilton says, what's up? Says up, Gil Hodge's finest.
Dude, knows about Gil Hodges, the greatest place to grow. Let me tell you a quick story about Gil Hodges.
Please.
There was a general manager there that stole all the league money, and he moved to England. His name was Nigel. If anybody lives in England and watching the show, and if Nigel's running your bowling center right now, don't give the guy any money. So he stole all the money from the leagues, and he went to England. And John Laspina owned that bowling center. He was head of the BPAA for a really long time. He's still prominently, you still see him. He owned Farmingdale Lanes that just got sold. They did some pro tournaments. There's some PBA 50 stuff. Anyway, long story short, the league sued John Laspina, and he ended up on People's Court. So if you ever look up, maybe they could find a YouTube of John Laspina on People's Court, and actually won. And the leagues never got recouped their money. I guess there was a reason why. And yeah, Robert Hamilton just talked about our Friday night brackets, bowling under alias names till 5 a.m. and then waking up at 6 a.m. to bowl a junior tournament.
Wow.
You know, the Gil Hodges Lane stories are endless, I'll tell you.
Yeah, for sure. Will does mention the pro shop is like the barber shop, and he would know. He's a pro shop guy in the Milwaukee area.
It is.
We already talked about the infamous plaid shirt. You know, he says thanks, of course, and that he got his rosin bag.
Yeah, we made rosin bags with our Soup the Rack logo on it. We didn't make it, actually. It was by Jeff Lindenmuth from Lindy's Bags in SoCal. He was a big fan of the show, and he just made our rosin bags and sent them to us. And, you know, we support, you know, his rosin bag or embroidery company. And, yeah, he gave us rosin bags. So now I have a Soup the Rack rosin. And and it actually doesn't break when you throw it, because I've thrown it numerous times. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so Joe B says Walter.
Yeah, we're talking about Walter Ray.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You know, of course, Robert Hamilton. Tim Buck is the GOAT of Worst of the Week. You know, admin. You know.
That's what Tim Buck starts.
I'm familiar.
Yeah.
I'm familiar. It's on the intro slide. You probably didn't see it. I kind of, you know, made it really small type. Robert says hard strike.
Hard strike. That was our Worst of the Week. Mm-hmm.
Yep, for sure.
I see a last name in there. It looks familiar.
Yeah, Jeff says breaking news.
Yeah, the breaking news for the inside info on the tournament.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Yeah. And Robert said those sponsors were Snickers and Kia.
I knew it was a Snickers. I knew it.
Yeah. And
I remember. You didn't hear anything after that, so I mean.
Yeah. And, of course, the Friday night bracket action at Gil Hodges. Yeah. Wow. Great stuff. Really glad, you know, people are, you know, participating. You know, I'm sure brings back some memories for Mr. Piroshad here. But at this point, we want to do what we call off the sheet. And that's where we ask you to challenge somebody else to be on a future episode of our show. And it doesn't have to be a particular skill level. We're looking for people with a unique bowling story to tell and a passion for the sport. So, Brooklyn Rob Piroshad, who would you like to challenge to be on a future episode of Bowling with the Fef?
So I have a lot of obviously friends that are nationally known pro bowlers, just doing the podcast, doing, you know, bowling with them, bowling against them. But there's nobody as unique and has as much love for the sport as Big Mike, and he is my co-host on Soup the Rack. So I will call out Big Mike. You need to get Big Mike on the show to talk about his background as a self-proclaimed the GOAT of high school bowling coach. You know, and I'm the self-proclaimed bowling of New York City, the GOAT of New York City bowling. He's the self-proclaimed coach of New Jersey coaching bowling. And the love and history that he knows for bowling is really surpasses anybody I really know. And I've been in the industry a long time. His history and knowledge of the game in that aspect is pretty incredible. So I feel like he'd be a great guest for you. So I call out Big Mike.
Yeah, I would love to have Big Mike on. Mike, if you're watching, you know, get a hold of me. I know you're on Twitter. We've direct messaged each other that way. You can certainly find me there or email me. bowlingwiththefef@yahoo.com is my email address. Our next live stream is coming up Wednesday, September 8th, 6 p.m. Central, which is back to our usual time. But Rob, it's been a blast. Like you said, I mean, there are a lot of bowling, live streams, podcasts out there. My opinion has always been that we're all a little bit different. I mean, Beef and Barnsey gives you the kind of the pros perspective. You guys are more opinionated. I'm more interview based. I mean, we all should get together, collaborate. Someday we'll rule the world, right?
I'm telling you, it's definitely we need more people in the media, like just producing media to get bowling out there, and hoping sponsors start picking up on a lot of that. Just in general, right? The people can have a lot of power. They can start sport leagues. They can start regular leagues. They can start media. Look, me and Mike are fans, and we started this whole Sweep the Rack thing, and it's just been so amazing and opened our doors to so much stuff that we've never thought it would have. But the people have so much power to make bowling a huge sport, and I feel like if everybody contributes, bowling one day will get to that, to that level. But I do want to wish you a very happy 13th wedding anniversary. I saw that, and 13 years of marriage. I can't even get a date, let alone 13 years of marriage. So I do want to wish you a happy wedding 13th anniversary. I saw that come across my Facebook, and I knew I had to bring that up. So
thank you. I'll tell you, Mrs. Pfeff is not a bowler. She has been to her share of leagues and tournaments. Listen to me go on and on about the show, this show, and your show. And obviously, what can I say? She's the love of my life, and she may not be in the greatest sport in the world, but nobody's perfect, and she's awfully close.
Perfect, absolutely.
So, yeah. But anyway, thank you so much for being on. We're going to end it there. Everybody be just and fear not. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
It's a pleasure. Bye.